right, so we're going to start talking about our next unit, which is all about data analysis. First thing we're going to talk about are two-way tables. So first thing, why do we use two-way tables? Well, it's a way to investigate. So it's a way to investigate. So it's a way to investigate relationships. So it's a way to investigate relationships among categorical data. AKA, it's just a way for us to compare a bunch of things together. Okay. So how do we interpret a two-way table? Well, let's look at this. So a group of men and women answered a survey asking about the type of weekend activities they enjoy. The two-way table below shows the data collected. Okay. So we have men's information here. We have our women's information here. And then we have everybody's information together. Okay, and then up top are the 3 different activities that they said that they like to do. So what type of weekend activity do men like best? Okay, well, what type do men like best? Just looking at the men, which number is the highest? Because that would be the one that most men like best. Well, most men like to play video games. So we're going to write play video games here. Because under men, it's the one with the most number of responses. Kind of think about it like Family Feud. Family Feud is a two-way table, essentially. They survey people and they put that information in a nice organized list for you. But behind the scenes, they're doing this, right? Okay. What type of activity do women like best? Do women like best? Okay, well, women are here. Okay, women are here. The highest number is shopping. So we're going to go with shopping. All right, last one, the total, right? Just kidding. Last one is what would be best for both men and women. So that would be looking at our totals. What's the highest number in our totals? Well, overall, our highest number in totals is 75. So together, both men and women like to go hiking overall. Okay, so that's how we interpret a table. We're taking that information we're given and we just make information or decide information from that. Make inferences. Okay, so yeah. All right, let's talk about completing a two-way table. So with a two-way table, they all have to add up in our total columns. Okay, so what that means is that the iPhone needs to add up to here, and the Samsung needs to add up to here. But together, they add up to this 175. Same thing with the data. We have the unlimited data here. There's this total. We have the limited data, and that has to add up to 175. So it's kind of like the big table, they all add up to this 175. So given this information, we can fill in these missing values. So it doesn't really matter where you start. I like to start at the totals first. So we know that limited and unlimited data need to add up to 175. So to find this missing box, this missing box for unlimited, we would need to do 175, because that's our total amount, minus how many people have limited data, which is 31. So we would do 175 minus 31 in our calculators. And when we do that, we're going to get 144. Okay, so 144 out of the 175 surveyed have unlimited data. Okay, so let's find how many people have iPhones. Okay, so we have our total number of surveyed, and we know that 72 of them have Samsung phones. So we'll do 175 minus 72, because that's how many have Samsung phones. Well, if we do 175 minus 72, we're going to get 103. So, 103 of the people surveyed have iPhones. Okay, so now let's fill in the missing information. So the next box would be how many people with iPhones have limited data. So the next box would be this one. We know that we have a total of 103 iPhones. We're going to do 103 minus how many have unlimited data, which is this 94. So what is 103 minus 94? Well, that's 9. Okay, so we have these last two rows done, last two columns, right? So now we really need to figure out these Samsung phones. Okay, well, we know that the total for unlimited data is 144. And we know that 94 of the 144 are iPhones. So if we subtract those two, that's going to give us how many are Samsung phones, which if you do 144 minus 94 is 50. Last one, for limited data Samsung, we know the total number of Samsung phones is 72. We know 50 of them have unlimited data. So that leaves us with 22. Okay, so now that's how we fill in a two-way table. Okay, again, a hint here, I have it here, but it would be a good idea to find a row or column that has two values and start there. So we did that. We started with our totals and all that fun stuff. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about two-way tables. So we talked about the basics of them, but now we need to dive in a little bit more. Okay, so sorry, this is a long one. Okay, so frequency. Frequency is the number of times an event occurs. Okay, so each time a person says this is their answer to a survey, that's an event occurring, right? But relative frequency is the ratio of the number. So it's a ratio of the number of times an event occurs So it's the ratio of the number of times an event occurs to the number of trials performed. So really, it's really the survey answer to the total surveyed. Okay, so really it's what each person said was the answers compared to the total survey. Okay, so let's just complete the table. So since we just learned how to complete the table, I want you to pause the video and I want you to try to complete this table and check your answer. All right, so hopefully you paused and filled this in. Hopefully this one was relatively easy. Okay, so step one of finding the relative frequency of something is to complete the table, right? Then we need to find the conditional frequency. To do that, we find the decimal version by dividing the number with the total. Okay, so the other thing that we want to say about relative frequency is we want this as a percent. So relative frequency, we want our answer as a percent. So after we complete the table, then we need to turn everything into a decimal, which then will turn into a percent, okay? So again, we want to do that by taking our number for the male students, our 6, and dividing it by the total number of people surveyed, which was 25. So we want to do 6 divided by 25 in your calculator. I would say we want to round to the hundredths. So round to the hundredths place. Okay, so what is 6 divided by 25? Well, it's 0.24. Okay, and we know that female students, they surveyed 5 out of 25. So what is 5 out of 25 as a decimal? So what is 5 divided by 25? 0.20. Okay, our total for dogs was 11 out of 25. What is 11 divided by 25? 0.44. Okay, so we're taking our total number and dividing it. Okay, so our cats, we had 4 out of 25. And for female, we had 10 out of 25. And we had 14 out of 25. Okay, so find those decimals for me. Same thing for totals. Your totals were 10 out of 25, 15 out of 25, and 25 out of 25. So find the decimals for those last 6. Okay, so pause real quick and find those decimals for me. All right, so here's the big thing. We are going to want to check our work, right? So after you get all those totals, you're going to want to check. Does 0.24 plus 1/6 make 0.40? Yes. Does 0.20 plus 0.4 equal 0.6? Yep. Okay. Does 0.44, 0.56 add up to 1? Yes. So we want everything to add up to 1. Okay, so that's the big thing. So after we find our conditional frequency, now we want to find our relative frequency. So in order to find our relative frequency, we're going to simply change the decimals. So we're going to change the decimals to percents by timesing, or by, let's say, multiplying, that's the actual word, by multiplying by 100. So you're going to multiply all of these decimals by 100. So we're going to do 0.24 times 100 in your calculator. So we're going to do 0.24 times 100. And that's going to give you 24%. We're going to do 0.20 times 100. That'll give you 20%. Kind of see the process here that we're doing? Okay, so fill in the rest of this. Turn them all into percents. Okay, so pause and try to turn these all into percents. All right, so now we have the percents. Now we might be asked to solve these, right? So what percent of the total males have dogs? So we have to figure out what's our total. So our total in this case is just the males. And what do we know how many have dogs? So we have to kind of go back to the beginning. And we know that 6 males have dogs out of 10 total males. So we'll set up our, it's not really a proportion, it's really just a ratio. So we have 6 total males out of 10. And what is 6 divided by 10 as a decimal? Well, that's 0.60, right? So what is 0.60 as a percent? 60%. Okay. What percent of those surveyed, so the total number, have cats? Well, the total number of people that have cats. This one, we already did that number. Okay, so some of them you have to do a new ratio for. Some of them you might already have. So it just depends on the questions that are being asked. So in this case, we already know 56% of the total people surveyed have cats. Okay, we have one more piece. We're almost done. Okay, so now we need to create a two-way table given all of this information. So 50 students were asked whether or not they like the subjects of math and English. Here are the results. Okay, so 6 students do not like math or English. 22 students like math but not English. 18 students like English but no math. And 4 students like English and math together. So our table, we have to set up our headers, right? Before they were set up for you, dogs, cats, males, females, blah, 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 right? So we're really comparing math versus English. But it's not just English, it's whether they like or don't like English. So, and it doesn't matter which one you put here or here. I'm just going with English on top. That's how I did it before. So how many students like English? How many students don't like English? How many students like math? How many students don't like math? And these last columns are always our totals. So these last ones are always our totals. And this box isn't going to be filled in. Okay, so you can just kind of ignore that box. Okay, so we know how many students altogether. Well, there was 50 students surveyed. So I'm going to plug that in. We know that there's a total of 50. We know that 6 do not like math or English. So they don't like math and they don't like English. 6 students meet that criteria. Okay. 22 students like math, but not English. So they like math, but they don't like English. So 22 goes there. You see how we're finding where these numbers go? 18 like English, but they don't like math. So 18 goes here. 4 students like both. They like English and they like math. So 4 goes there. Now, we just have to finish by finding our totals, right? Well, what is 4 plus 18? 18 plus 4 is 22. What's 22 plus 6? 22 plus 6 is 28. What's 18 plus 6? 24. And 22 plus 4 is 26. Okay, so now we have our totals. They add up to 50. They add up to 50. We're good to go. That's how you create a two-way table from scratch. Okay, so I know that was a lot, and we're going to talk about each one of these pieces each day of this upcoming week. So don't stress too much. We're going to review this.